Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Tori, and welcome to part 2 of Mailbag number 4. Now, in part 1, it was a bit of a channel update. You guys gave me a few questions that you had about the Blazers Uprise channel, and I answered them. So if you're interested in watching that, make sure to go check it out. But in part 2, we're just going to answer your Blazers questions. Now, I said no trade questions because I keep getting the same trade questions again and again and again. Week after week, I get the same trade questions. Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Love. I've answered those in multiple mailbags, and I still get asked questions about them. There's mailbags where I'll answer a question where somebody asks me about the possibility of us trading for Danilo Gallinari, and I'll go into depth about that. And then in the comment section on that mailbag, I'll have another question asking me about Danilo Gallinari, and I think those questions are being placed before they even watch the video. So please watch the video. Don't give me a question that I answer in that video because I don't want to keep answering the same type of stuff. There's a lot of Blazers stuff that we could talk about, so try and come up with fresh new questions each and every week. But from now on, I'm not doing any trade questions because I will be doing a trade profile series where I'll look at one player that I think could be a good trade target for us at the trade deadline, and I'll talk about some potential deals, I'll talk about their situation, and I'll just go fully in depth on that player. So other than that, if you want a chance to win NBA 2K20, make sure to join my giveaway. I'm doing the drawing in about 2 or 3 days, so you only got a limited amount of time to join that giveaway. To join that giveaway, there's a link to my Patreon down in the description box below. If you donate $1, you get 1 ticket. If you donate $5, you get 2. If you donate $10, you get 3 tickets and the opportunity to appear with me on my upcoming podcast, as well as some post-game live streams. And then if you donated $25 or more, for one, you'd be what they call the real MVP. You'd be helping me out a lot, but you'd also get 4 tickets, and you get priority and the possibility to appear in some other types of videos on this channel. I have a lot of content that I have planned. I talked more about that in part 1 of Mailbag number 4. So if you want to participate in that, then you have the opportunity to just by donating a little bit to my Patreon. Now, if you're interested in winning 2K20, make sure to pause this video, click that link down below, place your donation amount, and then click right back here. So anyway, subscribe if you haven't done so. Leave a like on this video, it helps me out. And with that being said, let's jump into your Blazers questions from the past week. We're going to start off with Zachary Bremen. I'm reading it off my computer right here, so that's why I'm going to be leaning forward reading this. But we're starting off with Zachary, and he says, Have you seen the ESPN playoff bracket? Man, why are they always sleeping on Portland, even after we made it to Western Conference Finals last year? Still no respect. And I'm really excited for a video that I have coming up where I basically call out all the disrespect that you're talking about because it's running rampant. 2 years in a row, we were predicted to miss the playoffs, and we got the 3 seed. Last season, they justified predicting us to miss the playoffs by saying, oh, we didn't do anything in the playoffs. We got swept by the New Orleans Pelicans. So then we got the 3 seed again, made it to the Western Conference Finals without our starting center. Then we got better in the offseason, and somehow we're only supposed to be the 7th seed, and somehow we might have a chance of missing the playoffs with a team like the Dallas Mavericks making it ahead of us. The Dallas Mavericks, who only have 2 above-average NBA players in Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis being a guy that is coming off a torn ACL, so who knows what he's going to do and who knows what his value is after the injury, and especially as a second option. I'll go in just like that on all the disrespect that I'm seeing from these national media experts. William Felder says, I'm very glad Aminu is gone. His one job was to sit in the corner and shoot, and he wasn't consistent. What do you think about him? I don't know how you can say his one job was to sit in the corner and shoot. His one job was to defend the other team's best opposing player, and he did a pretty good job of it. He wasn't a terrible three-point shooter. He was pretty average during his stint in Portland here, but for a guy that provides his defense, his rebounding, that's pretty solid. And then his efficiency, especially from inside the arc, improved a lot last season. He had like a 57 true shooting percentage. He was actually an above average player in terms of efficiency, and to go along with that defense, he's not a bad player. He's going to be the player that we missed the most this season, in my opinion, and Blazer fans, as I've said before, for whatever reason, they have the tendency to vastly underrate him. He's a guy that does the little things, does the dirty work, and that goes undervalued more often than not. Tommy Thompson had a couple of questions. First one, video idea. Do you think Zach will supplant Nurk at center? Nurk should be looking for a big payday. I gotta stop you there. He still has 3 years left on his contract, so I don't know how he has the leverage to look for a big payday because he's locked in for 3 years. Or do you think we'll keep both at the 4 and 5? I do think we'll keep Collins at the 4, Nurkic at the 5. I don't think Collins will supplant Nurkic as the starting center. I don't think that's possible, even in the slightest. Nurkic will be the starting center when he comes back. I have absolutely zero doubts about that. He says, also, will we keep Labissiere after this season? Appreciate the content, bro. Thank you. I have no idea with Labissiere. If he doesn't show up this season, then I could easily see us letting him walk. I mean, Layman had a very solid season last year, in my opinion, and we let him walk for absolutely nothing. So I have no idea if we'll let Labissiere walk. I have no idea how good Scal will be next season, so we'll just have to wait and see on that one. The second Tommy Thompson question is, we have Bazemore's bird rights, so do you think we should keep him next season? And roster construction is fluid. We could trade for a guy like Otto Porter Jr. as small forward and keep Rodney Hood as the 6th man at the backup small forward, and we really wouldn't have a need for a guy like Kent Bazemore. I think it's very likely that we might trade him at the trade deadline, so I can't really look that far ahead and say that we should or we shouldn't re-sign him. And then the last Tommy Thompson question. Zach reportedly added 20 pounds of muscle. Thoughts? And I've seen people make fun of Mike Barrett because Mike Barrett always said, so-and-so has added 15 pounds of muscle. He's going to be a beast. Martell Webster, he's added 15 pounds of muscle. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's added 40 pounds of muscle. I feel like this always happens for almost every team in the NBA where a guy either loses a lot of weight. Oh, DeMarcus Cousins, he's lost a lot of weight. He's going to be lightning quick next season. That's something I saw a couple seasons ago. Or a guy like Zach's case, a big man who's been kind of underweight, a little bit too skinny. All of a sudden, he's added 20 pounds of muscle. I don't believe he's added 20 pounds of muscle. That's a lot to add in 3 months. I don't believe he's added 20. I believe that's hyperbole. He's probably gotten stronger. He's needed to be, and he's had that ankle injury, so he's probably been in the weight room just beefing up. But we hear this all the time, so I don't put too much stock into that until I can actually see the player and see how much bigger they look and watch them play to see if they're holding ground a little bit more, if they're a little quicker, if they look a little lighter, that type of thing. Russell first round exit Westbrook. That's a perfect name, and they ask, I know that we are not a free agent destination, but I feel that if there was ever a time we could get a free agent, it would be with Dame and CJ in their prime, coming off of what will hopefully be another successful season. My question is there a way for us to clear a max slot next offseason to potentially offer Anthony Davis or another big free agent next summer? And I plan on making a video looking at our options going into the 2020 offseason. That will come at some point in September. As I said, I got a lot planned, so I'll answer that question in that video. Stay tuned. Natty Twan says, who's going to be the starting small forward? I got a lot of questions about Bazemore versus Hood, what our rotation looks like. Rodney Hood, I'm pretty confident, will be our starting small forward. I think Stotts wants a bit of a scorer at the small forward spot, and that's not to say Bazemore can't score the ball, but Rodney Hood is obviously the better offensive player. And people will say, oh, we need a defender at small forward to go against LeBron and Kawhi and Paul George and those types of players, but I don't think Rodney Hood's a bad defender. I think Bazemore's a little better of a defender, but I don't think the gap is as big as many people think. Rodney Hood impressed me on the defensive end last season, and I think what the strategy would be to start Rodney Hood and have him press up on a guy like Kawhi or Paul George on the perimeter, make them drive, and then we have two rim protectors protecting the rim. We got Whiteside and we got Zach Collins. Both guys can block a ton of shots, and I think they can do a good job protecting the rim. So Rodney Hood would have the job of pressuring the ball handler, not letting them get off clean looks from the three-point line, and then we'd protect the rim with our bigs, and their best option for the opposing player would be a mid-range jump shot, and Stotts' defense is geared towards giving up the mid-range jump shot. So that's what I think our plan will be next season. And I think Bazemore makes a little bit of sense off the bench because we really don't have a good defensive player off the bench. Tolliver and Hezonja are average defenders at best. Pau Gasol, he's 39 years old, so who knows what he'll be on the defensive end. Anthony Simons certainly isn't a good defender at this point in his career. So in our starting lineup, we have two rim protecting bigs. On our bench, we don't really have any good defensive players, so I think Bazemore's defense actually might be needed more on the bench than in the starting lineup. The second part of that question, will Whiteside continue to be the starting center even when Nurkic comes back? No, I don't think that'll be the case. I think it's very likely that we end up trading Hassan Whiteside. Even if Hassan Whiteside kills it and is better than Nurkic ever was, Nurkic's contract is very, very cheap. I still think it makes sense to trade him because if Whiteside plays that well, he'll demand a very large contract that'll be much bigger than Nurkic's. Nurkic is still younger. He's more ingrained in this team. He doesn't have an expiring contract like Whiteside's $27 million deal, and that $27 million expiring contract is going to be very valuable on the trade market. If Whiteside plays really well too, then that might mean that we can swing some sort of 3-team trade and get a pick back from whoever gets Whiteside and send that to a team like Detroit in a package for Blake Griffin, or send that to a team like Minnesota for a guy like Robert Covington. The better Whiteside plays, the more expensive his deal will be, so that doesn't make sense, and the better he plays, the more trade value he'll have. So I think there's really no way where I see Whiteside keeping the starting job after Nurkic comes back. I think there's probably a 75-80% chance that we flip him at the trade deadline. Kesey says, do you think Portland missed out on Bol Bol? And be careful, because Bol Bol could be absolutely incredible, and most of us Oregonians watched him play. He would have taken Oregon to the championship game. No, he wouldn't have taken Oregon to the championship game, okay? That wasn't going to happen. He was not the difference between Oregon barely squeaking into the tournament on a hot run and making the championship game. 2, we did not miss out on Bol Bol. His injury issues are a definite concern, but then also he reminds me a bit of the way Thon Maker was coming into the league, where, Thon Maker, he can do a little bit off the dribble, he can pull up from 3, he's a big guy with guard skills. Thon Maker hasn't been a good NBA player. I think Bol Bol offensively could be a lot like Thon Maker, maybe even a little bit worse. And then defensively, he is very, very weak inside. He's going to get bullied inside. And then he's not quick enough to move his feet out on the perimeter. I know he was a big name, and I know he has some flashes of really good play for the Oregon Ducks, but there's a reason why he slipped in the draft. The GMs and scouts in the draft, is their job to evaluate players, and he got drafted 44th. So based on that, based on some of the concerns I've seen with him, based off his injury issues, I don't think that we're going to be saying, we missed out on Bol Bol. Especially when we got Nasir Little with the 25th pick. He was rated higher as a prospect going into college than Bol Bol was. Jonah Herring says, do you think CJ will be an all-star finally with Klay Thompson out for the year? And if we're a top 3 seed and CJ is averaging like 21, 22 points per game, he has a very solid chance at being an NBA all-star. But what you have to remember is one of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard is probably going to be considered a guard for the Los Angeles Clippers, because I think their starting lineup is going to be Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Mo Harkless, and that Zubac guy. So based on all-star voting, you might see Paul George or Kawhi Leonard get listed as a guard, and if that's the case, then CJ probably doesn't have a chance at making it, and it's not because he's not all-star caliber. The guard position in the West is just absolutely stacked. I want CJ to make it. It would be cool to have CJ and Dame there, but I think CJ could honestly be one of the best NBA players to never make an all-star game. Cash Carter says, what do you think about Dame's new album? Personally, I like it a lot, and I didn't like it at first. It sounded kind of generic, but it's grown on me for just bumping in the car, not really paying attention to the music. It's a good album, in my opinion. It's a lot more mainstream. The lyricism isn't anywhere near as good as it used to be, but the sound, I think, is a lot cleaner. I think the production value on this last album was better than the first 2, but there's really no lyricism in the album that catches me listening it back, trying to figure out exactly what he's saying. Like, that was the case in the first 2 albums. He told a lot of stories in those albums. His lyricism was much better. It was more of a storytelling type of rap, and I feel like he got a bit away from that in his past album, and I feel like that might have been a mistake. It'd be awesome for him to somehow bring that lyricism to the more mainstream, catchy flow that he had on this past album. I also think his flow has gotten better. The rhythm in which he rhymes is better. He's not trying to force too many syllables into one bar. But at the same time, his flow is pretty generic. It's the same on many, many tracks. So I think the next step in his evolution as an artist will be to try and bring some of that lyricism to that more mainstream, wavy type of feel. And then also try and get better at switching up his flow and keeping things fresh throughout a song, and especially throughout an album. Ann Lou says, what are some season goals the Blazers should have regarding player progression, like with Zach Collins, Anthony Simons, etc.? And I will have a series looking at every Blazer on the roster before the season starts, and I'll set goals for each player during that season. I'm expecting those to be like short little 4 or 5 minute videos, but those videos will look at what they need to do going into the season, what I hope to see them improve on, and how I hope they perform. Abraham Duran says, do you think Nasir will play this season because we always bench our rookies? And this is a question I've answered multiple times. I believe I answered it on the past mailbag. I don't think Nasir Little will play. He's very, very raw. He needs some time to develop. I think he's 2 years away from being 2 years away, as they would say. But he's only 19 years old, so he definitely has some time to progress. 4 years from now, he'll be coming off his rookie contract, and he'll still only be 23, 24 years old, so we have time with him. I don't expect him to play right now. He might end up playing in his second season if he develops well during this year, but right now I'd say it's unlikely that he even plays during his second season. I think he'll have a progression a bit like Layman. The hope is that the upside is just a lot higher than Layman's ever was. And then last question, Abel Beck says, why you always hating on Hezonja? He was always just in a bad situation. And don't take this personally, I'm not trying to come off too strong here, but I've answered this multiple times. I have a video on Hezonja where I go into depth talking about why I don't like Hezonja. And even if you disagree with me, all my points on Hezonja are fair in my opinion. I'm not hating on Hezonja. I'm not just saying, oh, I don't like Hezonja. I don't like that pickup just because I don't like Hezonja. I hate Hezonja, so I'm just going to hate on him. No, my opinion is based on what he's done so far in his career. My opinion is based on not believing that the situation was solely to blame for him not performing up to his draft stock, but I've already gone into depth in this a lot, and I get asked this all the time. And if you guys really want to know why I'm hating on Hezonja, I have some good reasons, and I've said them in multiple videos. But in the end, I don't just hate on players just to hate on players. Anyway, that wraps up this mailbag. Thank you guys for watching. Remember the Patreon giveaway in the description below. If you want 2K20, please go donate to me on Patreon, and you'll have a legitimate chance to win it, because I don't have that many people donating to me on Patreon. I think right now for this giveaway, we have only 20 raffle tickets, and that's a $60 game, so paying $1 to get a raffle ticket, your odds are pretty good there. So anyway, that's a wrap for this video. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Tori. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Go Blazers.